one.
Okay.
I made part of it.
Yeah, and then attendance, you got it.
Can you click on it? And then
Katie, do I have any? Thank you, Jesus. I'll now entertain a motion to return to regular session.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McQuillan, a second by Ms. Tanner to return to regular session. I'd like to state for the minutes, no action was taken in executive session. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are in regular session. Please now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. We're now on agenda item 4A, citizen comments. No one has registered prior to the meeting. There are no citizen comments. We will now take action as required from executive session. Mr. McQuillan?
Madam Chairwoman, I move to accept the recommendation of the administration to name Ms. Pamela Hubler as the new Innovative Learning Coordinator in the Technology Department with a contract to take effect July 1, 2021.
Second.
There's a motion from Mr. McQuillan, a second from Mr. Ramsey, to accept the recommendation of the administration to name Ms. Pamela Hubler as the new Innovative Learning Coordinator in the Technology Department with a contract to take effect on July 1, 2021. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations. But tell us who's with you. Your husband. Thank you. We always say when people take jobs at the school district, it's a family affair. So we would like to take some pictures. I think Brian is here to take some. He's not here. Katie will take some pictures so we can get a couple pictures. Congratulations. And thank you for staying in your current job until we can get it filled. Congratulations. We'll now move on to the student attendance appeals. I'll hear a motion for student number 1.
Madam Chair, I move that we deny the appeal of student number 1.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McQuillan, a second by Mr. Ramsey, to deny the appeal of student number 1. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Madam Chair, I move in the matter of student number 2 that we grant the appeal.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McQuillan, a second by Ms. Littleton to grant the appeal of student number 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 9-0. We'll now move on to agenda item 6A, the superintendent's report. Dr. Ingram, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, members of the audience. I would like to remind all board members of our obligation to submit our annual State of Economic Interest to the State Ethics Commission. I think you've got a flyer in your packet. The deadline is March 30. I submitted mine last week. It's done electronically. It's rather self-explanatory, but please take care of that at your earliest convenience. I want to thank Lacey for placing a working document in your folders. Those of you who've been following us know that we are striving to be a values-driven school district, and I think sometime this summer we had a workshop where we were doing some revisions. And I was really pleased to see that our shared values that you have decided that you would follow, trust, spirituality/faith, family, honesty, integrity, respect, and teamwork. The strike-throughs are what we had, but what you decided to leave off. We also have your concept statements. Lacey has put down what we had with strike-through and what you've come up with. So we made a lot of progress that night, and I commend you for it. But you'll see that we still, I would encourage you to work on your values-driven goals and commitments, and also your board protocols. I've done a lot of research in my career on values-driven organizations, elected bodies, and I'm just going to have to ask you to trust me when I say this. Elected bodies that conduct their business based on values work really, really well. It's collaborative, it's cohesive, it sometimes takes a little longer, but at the end of the day, a better result usually happens, okay? Give yourself some credit and give yourself some grace. You've heard me say that word a lot lately. This is unprecedented, what you're going through now. We're not used to having plexiglass beside us and masks on and those kinds of things, but don't lose sight of that regardless of the troubles. I think you'll find that in the long run it will pay off for this community and, most importantly, our children, along with the 21st century design that you so graciously have approved us. So thank you, Lacey, for this, and I just wanted to give this to you. I encourage the board to schedule another training as soon as you can, but I know there is a lot to do. Judy, thank you so much for being here, as always, with the Teacher Forum. I sent to board members, it just came across the press today, State Superintendent's Molly Spearman, her legislative priorities for 2021. I'll just briefly review them for the public. Number one, ensure the safety and wellness of South Carolina students and educators. Not just physical safety, but also the social and emotional health as well as the physical health. It's tough out there for everybody, not just physically, but also socially and emotionally. And there's nobody that's really okay, you know? And it's okay not to be okay. So we're going to work on that to help our situations out and try to gird each other up and lift each other up. Number two, recruit and retain teachers as always. And I think this board has taken aggressive steps to doing that, and I won't go into detail. Guarantee that every South Carolina student has access to robust college and career readiness opportunities. I think that we do that with our work in life skills, and we'll certainly work to hone that, making sure that every student that graduates from our school district has options when they graduate, whether it's work, further education, or life in general. Expand learning and literacy, early learning and literacy. If children are unable to read by third grade, it exponentially handicaps them throughout life. So I certainly support that. And maximize district efficiency and additional recommendations. And we've worked really hard in that area. Our financial audit's done. It's got the highest unqualified opinion. So I feel really good about that. Finally, I would like to read a brief statement. In mid-October, I communicated with Chairwoman Sally Wofford and informed her of my decision to retire no sooner than August 1st, 2021. We mutually agreed that I would make my announcement sometime after the holidays. I want each of you to know that it is a privilege to be the superintendent of Berkeley County Schools, and I am committed to working tirelessly over the next several months to ensure a smooth transition and to give the board ample time to conduct a search and identify a highly qualified candidate. I know from experience how time-consuming an effective search can be, especially during the hardship caused by this pandemic. With that said, If the next district chief cannot be found in a time frame commensurate with my retirement, I will postpone my departure until the person is chosen. Also, I will be more than willing to work with the incoming superintendent for a period of time to implement a seamless change of leadership. So, thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my report for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie, for your time and commitment to the school district. We have certainly faced some very tough days and are grateful for your leadership. I know Ms. Sue is happy. I'm going to tell Eddie's personal information, but his beautiful wife, Ms. Sue, has been up in North Carolina since the pandemic started. So I just knew it was a matter of time that you would have to go home and be with Ms. Sue. So I know she's watching, so we will miss you terribly, and we love you dearly. You will always have a home in Berkeley County, but we will keep doing business, and thank you for your willingness to continue until we've done a proper search. We are very grateful. The only thing that I had on the board chair report is the Ethics Commission filing. Please do that as quickly as you can. It does go out until March. Also, if you, I know we have some new board members, if you still have money in your campaign accounts, you also have to do financial, as long as you have money in your campaign accounts, you have to do quarterly financial reports. So that is something I did not know when I first started doing this. So if you do not know how to do that or need help with that, there are other of us who still have campaign money who can help you with that. We do not, agenda item 8A, we do not have any temporary committee assignments.
Madam Chair, I just wanted
I'm sorry.
have an opportunity to say something to Dr. Ingram.
Yeah, please do.
I did not learn of this until today when he called me and told me that he was going to retire, but I wanted to personally thank you for the number of years that you've worked for us and with us, and I hope that the relationship that you and I have developed will continue beyond your leaving Berkeley, because I respect you for who you are and what you've given to the district. So thank you for the services and the relationship that I've been with you. Thank you very much.
We got a few more months, and I've developed great friendships everywhere I've been, this being no exception. It's always very hard, but I really meant what I said when I think that, this board has tremendous potential. It's the finest board I've ever worked with. Not to say that there haven't been other boards that have been good, but I get to see how you go about your work like nobody else does. So I don't really want there to be a lot of fanfare, but I'm kind of like, what's that guy, that movie, Bill Murray never goes away, like the Uncle Bob or whatever. You're just kind of seeing me, just kind of like a bad habit. I'll never really go away. At least that's not my intent. I'm always a phone call away, and I'll be more than happy to help in any way that I can. It's my life's work. This isn't about money, So I didn't mean to say all that, Frank, but thank you for your candor and your leadership, as the rest of you as well. So I look forward to the next several months.
I was hopeful he was going to change his mind. So I told him, think about it. I was hopeful he was going to change his mind. But as the pandemic continues and Miss Sue continues to be a stay away, I knew it was inevitable. So thank you. I don't know if anyone else has something they want to share. I don't want to cut anybody off.
Yes, I would, Dr. Ingram. I think I'll speak for the rest of these board members. We value your service here. We appreciate the time and commitment, the dedication to the Berkeley County School District, and we look forward to working with you the entire time. You're not going to take any vacation leave. You're going to be here every day helping us through these pandemics and through everything that we have to traverse together. Thank you for that. We will certainly work together in unity until you leave, or until you say so long. You're not going to say goodbye. God bless you.
I'll just say see you later. And if you don't work together, we'll come back and sign up for public comment. I've always kind of wanted to do that, in fact, my last board, will I be able to hit that hammer one time? But at the end of several months from now, I always wanted to do that. But thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it.
Hearing nothing else, we'll call the full board meeting to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Littleton. Second by Ms. Tanner. To adjourn, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 9-0. The full board is adjourned. And we'll now refer to Ms. Littleton for academics and innovation.
Madam Chair, I'm calling the Committee on Academics and Innovation to order. I declare as a quorum of committee members present, and I note that the media has been given proper notice pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act. The first agenda item is the Head Start Budget Expenditure Report for November 2020, Head Start Credit Report for November 2020, 2021, 22, selection criteria, prospective new hires, and a 2021 and 2022 refunding application. What is the pleasure of the committee?
Motion to approve the Head Start Budget Expenditure Report for November 2020, Head Start Credit Card Report for November 2020, 2021 to 2022, selection criteria, prospective new hires, and 2021 to 2022 refunding application.
I second. We have a motion by Ms. Tanner and a second by Dr. Wigfall to approve the Head Start Budget Expenditure Report for November 2020, Head Start Credit Card Report for November 2020, 2021, 22, selection criteria, prospective new hires, and 2021, 2022 refunding application. Do we have any discussion?
I don't know, is Dr. Ling here? Katie Stapleton. I'm sorry, Katie Stapleton. Is this a renewal application, or is this, like, did we have to go through the, like, entire process this time, or is just the short application to re-up?
And I'll let also Ms. Jones speak if I'm incorrectly. We are about to start the new 5-year cycle.
Okay. So when we bid this time, we're committing to 5 years. Okay. Do we have to, is there any time in that 5 years that we will have to re-up, or is it only if we have a deficiency?
It is a continuing renewal for 5 years. It's not a deficiency.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
We'll now call the question. All in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, respond by saying nay. The ayes have it, 3-0. Motion passes. The second agenda item is the COVID update and the discussion of face covering mandates. This has been a very emotional time for our community and for our district. And the safety of the teachers, the safety of our kids is priority for this board. I want to say that we've gotten a lot of feedback in terms of the virtual week and mandating masks for all of the kids and the teachers. I'd like to call Ms. Driggers and Dr. Wolf up for what options we have in terms of masking, shields, and what we have available to us.
So we were asked to look at the potential of how many shields we have in the building currently, because we did have some delivery of shields and some purchases of shields that are being utilized in special education classrooms and throughout buildings in certain locations. So Diane, do you want to maybe talk about what we've currently got out there?
I really don't know the numbers that we have. What I was charged with was to, I'm not sure if Ashley or Marcy know. I know we've got a lot of them out there, but what I was charged with was what it would, if there was any way we could let students take part in the project of making that. And so we did this one this afternoon, where we made it with a laser cutter.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this, I think this would probably be around $3. But after we did this, I did some research and found out that the masks that we were buying, the adult masks we're buying now, they're $1.40. So, I mean, this would be a project for students.
But financially, it would be better to buy them. Okay.
But this would be, but there's something that if we wanted, if we wanted to do, or let students do for a project, we could. But they're quick, but it's a little more expensive than what we're giving them for a ball.
Okay, one of my thoughts was that if we could get the kids in the classes that do the 3D printing or use the laser printers, that we could get them to buy into the protection for fellow students, for their teachers, including wearing masks. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I got a question. I don't hear very well, so I apologize. But the discussion was as far as buying some of those head masks and getting those in our schools. Was that
Well, it's what options do we have? Because what we're being told is that there are kids that are not wearing masks. And there are some
Who's not wearing masks? I'm sorry.
of the kids, children.
I think it's mostly high school age children.
It is. The numbers that we have right now are saying that the outbreak, the numbers that we have, which are still very, very low in all of the schools. But if we look at the numbers, they're in the high schools. And I don't have a high school student right now, but I'm betting those people who have high school students are not going to tell me that their kids are constantly masked out in the community. They don't kiss their girlfriends. They don't go on dates. And I think that that's what's happening.
Because I don't have a problem with those, because actually I was giving one of those this weekend, and I was even going to wear it tonight, but I thought I might look stupid, so I didn't want to look stupid. The whole thing was, but it actually works pretty well, and it actually is less invasive than one of the cloth masks. But I called my principals, and my kids are in our schools, and I've asked my kids personally about 20 times on a daily basis, do you wear your mask? How does the mask go? And they're wearing their mask. And I called some principals, and it was the same thing. How's the mask policy going? Are we wearing masks? What does it work? I've been told it's going better than we thought. So the folks that I've spoken with, but I can only speak for the ones I've spoken about, are wearing masks. And that's the schools I directly deal with. So I understand there could be some other schools that are doing different than Hanahan schools, but so I'm not opposed to those face shields, and I'm not opposed to logical mask policy that we've had the whole time, which is a policy of compliance, which is if you ride the bus, you wear the mask, which is if you walk down the hall, you wear the mask, which is like my 8-year-old, he sits in his class all day long wearing a mask, which is if you go eat your lunch, you can take it off while you eat, which is if you go out to play at recess, you can take your mask off, but you are not to face any other children or get close to other children. And I have had even communication with one of my other children when they did not wear their mask. And so my other child, who's 11-year-old, when they are social distanced, the only time they're allowed to take their mask off is again to eat lunch, when they go in the playground, but they cannot face each other and cannot get close to each other. But when they've been social distanced, that teacher has felt secure to allow them to take their mask off sometime. So just so we're clear, as far as my understanding of what the school district's mask policy has been, has that my kids in my schools, they've been wearing masks the whole time. And that includes my high school. My high school principal has been exceedingly surprised that it has gone so well. But I do understand that there's more schools than just the district that I represent. Although I have been in some schools other than Hanahan across the district and have found all people wearing masks just as I have explained. However, the key issue with this that I find is I have had some educators that have consistently emailed me or texted me and said, please make masks mandatory. And that is the exact term phrase. But I've also had some educators that have emailed me to say, please go virtual till safe, which means be virtual the whole time. And then I've had some say, please come to school. So my whole point is, until I served on this school board, and I apologize for going on a tangent, but this is such a serious issue to me because my own children are in school and they're young, and so I take it very serious. how they wear their masks. Just like my 3-year-old goes to Montessori school, they don't wear masks there because they're too young. So we've wondered the whole time what was going to happen, and even fear of sending my 3-year-old to school with other 3-year-olds and other teachers. I am proud to say they have done an amazing job, and it has been safe, and we've made it through this whole entire time. But the point is, I've often wondered until I serve on this board, if you have good intentions, is good intentions enough? Is being sincere? It's just like on my silver ring, I have "so is he," which means whatever is in your heart is who you are. Is good intentions enough? And quite frankly, since I've served on the school board, I've come to the conclusion that good intentions is not enough. There's not always a right answer or a wrong answer, but I have come to the conclusion that results matter. So I feel like we've done an excellent job, but with that being said, I have understanding and respect if this board or if this administration does decide that we can improve upon a situation we've done. But with my own children, I have found we have been very consistent. I know I went on a tangent, but this is extremely important to me. Thank you.
So I have a high schooler, and my high schooler wears his mask, and he is very diligent in doing so. But he has expressed himself to me that other students in the hallways don't necessarily do that. So, and I don't know that we necessarily have a policy. I think it's been a recommendation. Am I right? We don't have a policy.
We have a policy.
We do have a policy. Okay.
Yeah, we have a policy. They're posted on, it's posted on our, where is Katie? It's posted on each school's website.
Okay.
They're called
Mask protocols. So,
and
so
it's
a separate one for buses.
Buses are separate than schools, and the principals. This is a part of the, I would say, process where we wanted to give autonomy to principals to manage their student population in their community. And so they have protocols, and they have just like a...
So principals do have the authority to enforce. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Because I didn't understand that. I'm being sincere. I'm asking that because I didn't understand.
I was going to say, in my mind, they do. I mean,
Okay.
they,
That's a good thing.
They have the authority for what's going on in their school. And we've even talked about, a kid who refuses to put their mask on, you pass by masking and you get into something where someone is being disrespectful, and you're dealing with different school rules. When it first came out, though, the superintendent was very clear that there could be no punitive discipline for masking. Right. My other concern with protocols above a mandate is I do not want to create a situation where our employees are disciplined in any way for masking. I feel like that we have professionals, and if someone is sitting in their room, in their empty space, and they want to pull their mask down and breathe, and no one else is in their room, I want our teachers to have the opportunity to take reasonable mask breaks. I don't think we should be walking through the hallways without masks on. I don't think we should have mass congregations of people. I think that high schools maybe didn't take it as seriously in the beginning, but once you start sending home 15 kids from one contact, and these kids aren't the kids that want to go home from school, but I do feel like, and maybe I'm overstepping, Dr. Ingram, I feel like these protocols are protocols that our principals have the authority to enforce.
Well, I just want to say one other thing about the shield. The shields don't work without a mask. They don't. The shields do not work without a mask. Those shields just don't. They don't go all the way around. So when you're talking and your air particles are moving, they're moving.
I would say there are people who would argue the masks don't work either, because even if I've sat here with Eddie with my mask on, if he tests positive tomorrow, I'm quarantined.
Right.
Because it's not effective. It is one of the only options we have to try to be safe. But if it were really effective, then if Eddie tested positive, I wouldn't have to go home for 14 days, or vice versa. So I think we tried to handle this very delicately in a way that creates, I don't think if you change one of these words to shall if it changes our implementation. Now, if we want stronger protocols so that the door says masks required here, you know, if you there are a couple of schools I walk up to and it says masks encouraged. I'm gonna tell you what, if you roll up to that door and think you're gonna go through it without a mask on, there's a very nice lady there who's gonna say, why don't you stand outside until we can help you? So I think they're enforcing it. You know, maybe we need to give some stronger language to their signage.
Yeah, I'd like to see the principals have the authority to separate out the kids that are just saying, I'm not going to wear a mask. And give the kids an option if they have a reasonable concern about feeling closed in or claustrophobic with the mask, to come up with another alternative. I don't want to make it mandated because I don't want our teachers spending their time getting into power struggles with kids. And I don't want kids written up because they don't have a mask on. We have enough things that we're holding the kids and the teachers accountable for now. I agree with the mask. The down shield works much better with a mask. Dr. Ingram demonstrated one that was rested on the collar
That one's more effective.
and went up, which is, wouldn't mind demonstrating again. That is a mask that will keep, and if we can find these masks, and we have kids with special needs that cannot wear a mask, you know, that something like this shield would be an option for them. And then if they say, I'm not wearing a mask, I'm not wearing a shield, I think we should invite them to go virtual. Just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say, go ahead, Matt.
Couple questions, Sally or Eddie or Ms. Littleton, these may be for you, but I guess first question, is this on the agenda based on some sort of administrative recommendation from the district, or who placed this on the agenda?
It was a request from, I need to look. It was a request from Mr. Barrow, Ms. Tanner, and Mr. Wright to discuss it. And I had also spoken to Ms. Littleton, who had concern over how to create a more compliant environment.
Yeah.
She and I had had 2 discussions over that. It was placed on the agenda as a discussion. So there's not a formal motion, but just a discussion of, I guess, where the board is on.
And then this is more of a question, I guess, for Dr. Ingram or somebody in the cabinet. My understanding, just so the public understands, that the current policy, we strongly encourage masks, but they are mandated for children using buses. Is that?
That's correct. And the reason for that, Mr. McQuillan, is the state owns the buses. And when I spoke with Superintendent Spearman, and we had other calls over the months with it, it was pretty clear that they didn't want it necessarily to be punitive, other than, okay, the state owns the bus. If you don't wear the mask while you're on the bus, then you can't ride the bus. So the question I would have, and I don't have a problem, we have a principals meeting in the morning, I don't have a problem with us infusing stronger compliance. But if I'm interpreting this correctly, just based on what I'm hearing, there's no one that I'm hearing on this board that would want us to necessarily write a reprimand to an adult for not wearing a mask if they slip one off, you know, at a time, or expelling a kid from school. But if a child continuously, without good reason, refuses to wear one, then invite them to go.
The child being disobedient.
That's different.
It's not about wearing a mask, it's about not following
And that's true,
instructions.
and we did, and you're right, we had
My
that.
concern is I don't feel any teacher should feel unsafe in a school. If
Sure.
there's an issue, a real issue of some teachers feeling unsafe, they should be contacting you in administration, and then it should be looking to work it through to see what we can do at that school. But
Sure.
the schools that I have contacted, there has not been any issue.
Right. And that's what I found too. Some schools don't have any issues. That's correct. In some schools, they're not
We need to work on.
as compliant, and we can certainly work on that. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that if someone is just refusing for whatever reason, then say, well, maybe you need to be virtual. If you just can't be publicly, wearing a mask. I know there's stores that I can't go into without a mask. Sometimes I'm not wearing a mask the second. And once I stop talking, if I'm not thinking about it, I might forget to put it back up. It's not that I'm trying, and then I catch myself, I don't know if any of y'all done it, I've caught myself driving in a car by myself wearing a mask. I've caught myself reaching for my mask during a Zoom meeting. Wait a minute, I'm the only one in the office and I'm putting on the mask protecting someone, 5 miles away in another school. So it's been a difficult adjustment. And I don't think we want to create more problems, but I think we would all like to see more people wearing the masks, I think, to keep them safe.
Or I was going to say address the specific schools that are having
Sure.
issues with compliance, and even, get some stronger signage on the front door.
Sure.
So that we feel stronger about the visitors coming in, because I've gotten two kinds of emails. One that say, please mandate masks at all time, which we know is not reasonable because we have people who cannot wear a mask all the time. And then I've had people saying, when are you going to let visitors and all these volunteers back in the school? There's two very different thought processes. But I think if you can strengthen the language and embolden our principals to be able to handle it, I think that helps. And I do know that we have had a couple of schools where there were children adamant not to wear a mask, and that was resolved in a way where you can come here and wear a mask, or we can move you to blended distance. So I know we have taken that approach with some kids. In my mind, we had taken that approach to all kids who were refusing. But if there are issues we need to address, I think we need to address them.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's happening in the high school, but I think this has been a healthy discussion. Anybody else want to?
I was just going to say, if any of the three members that proposed this, Mr. Barrow, Ms. Tanner, Mr. Wright, if you have any, I'd like to hear your ideas and thoughts on the discussion of face mask covering mandate. I'm in favor personally of requiring masks. I'm fine if we change the language in the policy from strongly recommended to required. I guess my question or thought, or want to hear your thoughts on is, are we just wanting to change the language, or are we wanting to have punitive measures for both teachers and students, where students are suspended if they don't wear a mask, or a teacher is disciplined and something placed in their file? Or are we just changing the wording to change the wording? I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think what you just hit on here, that there should be required to wear masks if they're in our building or they're working, because, it's like if I'm going to Publix, I put my mask on, and once I get done shopping, I walk out and I go in my car, like Dr. Ingram said, sometimes I still have it on. But I think it's something that we have to do now. It's not permanent. I think teachers are probably going to be some of the frontline folk to get their shot if they decide to do so. But I think it's something that we need to do because we're trying to make sure that we keep our schools safe. I don't think we're asking too much. And I think if you can have that sign at the door that you must be wearing a mask before entering the building, I think it makes sense. We do it every day. Don't you have to put it on before you go in the county building?
Oh, my kids do now. Yeah.
I'm saying the county building. Do you
No,
have
I don't. I don't wear a mask when I walk in the county building.
Oh, you don't?
have to.
Okay.
No, I work in the county.
I guess I'm surprised because I had to when I went to pay my property tax.
No, it is not required. They have a letter up there strongly encouraging and asking to same as what we do in the school district right
Well,
now.
I'm sorry. But anyway, I think we should demand them to do that, require them to do that because they're representing the district, and we don't want parents and teachers or principal, anybody else, to have to deal with anything negative going forward.
Yeah, I kind of initiated the discussion tonight with a request to the board chair, along with Ms. Tanner, Mr. Wright, as well as some input from some other board members. Let's go back a couple of months when we were at the Thanksgiving break, and we came back, and it was an uptick, it was a spike. We thought about how to handle that circumstance, and then, of course, here comes Christmas. We were thinking about some virtual possibilities right after Thanksgiving, but that didn't come to fruition. But we all knew that the Christmas break would probably be even more demanding and have more of a snowball effect after we came back because of the number of days that were involved. Thanksgiving was 5 days. We're talking about 19 days or something like that, in which families were together, they were traveling. We knew that we would come back. So there was a decision on December 8th or somewhere around in there to do the virtual week last week. That really was a situation where you are going to be criticized either way. Whether you voted for the week or whether you did not, there were going to be people on both sides of the discussion. I happen to think that the week actually helped. I don't necessarily think that it was long enough because the numbers are still rising. They may be peaking now. They may be starting to come down, but we're still having very serious issues with the number of COVID cases, not only in the district, but in our schools. Yesterday there were, I don't know the numbers for today, but yesterday there were 50 active COVID cases that were reported in our schools and 49 close contacts. A total of 99 individuals that are going to have to be quarantined. Now that's just one day. So how long do these folks have to be quarantined? 5, 10 days? You talk about a snowball and a number of situations in particular schools probably that are on the verge of not being able to function properly because of the lack of teachers and the lack of staff and so forth. So I thought about this and I'm saying, we don't need to go back to another virtual week because there's a lot of opposition to that, and we all agree. Face-to-face instruction is by far the best teaching model. It's the best way that we can go. So, and we've also, if you recall, we encouraged our students and our parents to allow our students to come back after Christmas and come back in February if you're middle and high school. So what's going to happen? We're going to have more people in our classrooms than we have had before Thanksgiving and before Christmas. They're going to be face-to-face instead of virtual. And when that happens, it's obvious the effect is that the spacing between students is going to decrease. The more kids you have in a class, the less social distancing you're going to have. That's just a fact, okay? So when you get 22 to 24 kids in a classroom, you're not going to put them 6 feet apart, which is CDC recommendation. So we're stuck with 3 options. Do nothing, go back to virtual, or at least possibly have a mandate for instruction. And I will say this, Matt and Michael, I agree. To the extent that we were able to social distance, I agreed with the language that we strongly recommend that a mask be worn, but not mandated if there's a social distance option. But when you start putting 22 to 24 kids in a classroom, you're not going to be able to social distance them properly. So you're going to have to either resort to virtual instruction, which I am not for. Okay, some of us were roundly criticized for closing schools. We didn't close schools. We shut down the face-to-face for a week so that we could have some lower numbers when we came back to school. There was no intent to try to close down schools or to have virtual instruction for the rest of the year. And there's no intent now to put people in a situation of you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. We're not talking about punitive measures, Matt. We're not talking about that. We're talking about if it's not where we can socially distance kids in the classroom, then I think we owe it to our parents to give them some sort of a comfort level to know that their kids are going to be in the classroom and they're not going to be exposed. So that's my kind of thought.
Yeah, David, I don't disagree with you, and I think this is a really good discussion that we're having, because we get a lot of texts, a lot of emails, a lot of feedback about this, and that's why I believe, and the numbers are going up, even though our numbers are some of the lowest, if not the lowest, in the state of South Carolina.
Right.
But our numbers are going up. So I feel like it's very reasonable for Dr. Ingram and his administration to make the decision on this. And quite frankly, like I said, between the verification of the Hanahan schools and a few other schools that I checked with, only thing that's really going to change is a word, because they're already doing it. And some other places where some teachers are not feeling that it's done effectively, and we're having issues, then I have, with the situation we're in, I have no problem with trying to improve it.
Yeah, and Mr. Bear, you may have misunderstood me. I am in favor of a mask mandate. I was just trying to figure out what exactly we're trying to accomplish. Do we want to, in addition to just changing the word to required or mandated, is there a proposal for some sort of punitive measure? It sounds like there's not. And so in that case, I guess we'd ask the superintendent, based on what the board's done, to implement a policy to
The notes that I have are stronger signage in places where perhaps the signage isn't. And the principals to, talk with kids about, if you're just not going to wear a mask and there's no reason not to, then entertain on a case-by-case basis, depending on the situation, maybe you need to go virtual, blended distance, I'm sorry, without the punitive measure, and I think that would be, consistent. I haven't asked my cabinet yet, haven't had a chance to, but they're the ones that generally have to implement it, and we have a principals meeting in the morning, and I can certainly emphasize that with our principals, and then we can target the schools that seem to be a little more, for lack of a better word, problematic in that area, and say, what can we do to help you strengthen this to get more compliance in your schools? So I agree.
But the key is to have the teachers and the principals that feel like the superintendent and the board is fully backing them.
Sure.
Yes. Know where we stand, and we understand the seriousness.
That's true.
Sure.
Exactly.
Because we're getting so much communication on a daily basis, so it's very reasonable for us to try to improve.
Sure.
Yeah, again, I believe that the emphasis is in the high schools more than any place else.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where they're getting most of the resistance, because that's where I'm getting the reports from as well.
Middle school too.
Yeah, I'm reading the same things, that it's nationwide higher in the secondary schools, middle and high.
My 7th grader, he never takes a mask off, and I interrogate him every day.
That's what I do to my husband. I get it.
Did you wear the mask? His little face is all broken out. I do know there are some folks who've implemented this very well. Maybe that's the other thing. The principals who've been really successful, maybe they need to give some help.
It's truly a level of respect for others. That's what it is. And that's what I've told my children.
The first thing my 8-year-old said to me, I asked him, Paul, are you excited about Christmas break? He said, yeah, I'm excited I won't have to wear a mask all the time. That was, seriously, that was because they are wearing it.
Yeah, and I would just add one more thing, and that's that if we're going to mandate that children wear masks, that we also educate them how to wear masks, unlike some of the board members here. You do not take your mask off like this unless you're going to wash your hands right afterwards, because you are breathing through it. Anything you're expelling is on that mask. If you, in the hospital, they see you do that, they're like pumping, alcohol in your hands,
Bad when I go like this.
That's bad,
Yes,
that's bad.
You're supposed to go like this.
You're supposed to take it off on this, yeah.
Well, when I talk, I'm going to take it off so people can understand what I'm saying. Let me just make one final comment, and it basically was for a discussion only. This was not an attempt to create a we versus they on the board, or to come to some a vote, an action item vote, in which we were going to create some sort of issue within the board. It was just because the number of people that have reached out to all of us deserve some sort of a discussion and explanation as to what we think is the right thing to do. And I would encourage Dr. Ingram as well, Michael, to look into this and for him as well as his principals and cabinet to come up with what they consider to be a reasonable, not compromise, but resolution to the number of cases that we're having. And because whenever we have these issues, we've got to react some way. We've got to do something. Doing nothing is not an option, in my opinion.
Well, one other, since this is a COVID update and discussion of face creams, one other thing I've had several people reach out to me about is the South Carolina, I guess, DHEC policy is now 7 to 10 days for quarantine. I think the district, and I could be wrong about that, that's the info I'm getting though, and the district currently requires 14. So I didn't know if there was any thoughts from the administration or discussions about that.
Right now, we stick with the 14 because the 14 seems to be the gold standard. I don't have that language in front of me, but if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at my cabinet for help. There's 7 to 10 days is okay with some, I guess, testing, but if somebody doesn't test, 14, but then it says something like 14 is still the best. Amy's saying, yeah, that's Karen saying, yeah, Ashley, yeah. So I'm getting some affirmations that my brain's not completely fried from COVID, but not that I have it, but I mean, it's you know, so much stuff has come across my desk. And that's why we stuck with 14. We're not trying to keep people away, but 14 is still the gold standard. And that's been frustrating for all of us because we send some folks home that, you know, don't feel sick and they don't want to be home, but yet they understand. It's just, I think one of our board members said to me not too long ago, you know, life is bad for everybody right now. You know, it's not good for anybody, and we're just trying to get through it the best we can. But these are really good recommendations. I have no problem working with cabinet and principals tomorrow to embolden and strengthen mask compliance and changing signage on doors.
The other thing I would ask for,
Highlighting schools where it's a bigger problem than others.
where it's an issue, the other thing I'd ask for is I think that we've done a good job with plexiglass and the younger kids. They don't tend to transmit like the high school kids do. So I know that's probably a bigger undertaking. I don't know how much of what we have. But if the classrooms are starting to fill, or if we think February 1, the classrooms are going to fill, can we have a more concerted effort to create some more barriers in the classroom? I mean, you know, if we're going to try to do something, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I do too. And I go by Oakley every morning, the maintenance shop, and I checked with Ronnie Burnett and our PPE supplies, and we're in good shape right now. We've got some more money coming, I think, and we'll be able to spend more money on this. Oddly enough, knock on wood, you know, we had shortages of things when this first broke out, but you know, the good old-fashioned capitalism and supply and demand now where, you know, everybody's got plenty of this stuff, and it's a matter of getting it ordered and getting it here. So we'll certainly tackle that because I agree we need more. And there are different kinds of shields too, you know, which ones work better than others. So we've got 2 or 3 different kinds, and we'll certainly do that. I don't think it'll ever really go away either. You know, it's kind of like the pandemics will tend to change society a little bit. I don't think you'll ever see grocery stores taking them down from the checkout folks, or the, you know, maybe shields in office areas and things like that, particularly flu season. So I don't think it's necessarily going to go away completely.
Can't catch the flu this year, though.
No, I mean, I commend our carpentry folks because they put these together pretty quickly, and we didn't necessarily have the stuff to do it with, but they figured out a way. So.
That looks good.
Is there any more discussion? At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the committee meeting so that the Finance and Human Committee meeting can begin.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Tanner and a second by Dr. Wigfall. Do we have any discussion? With none, we'll call for question. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. The motion passes 3-0. Michael?
I am now calling the Committee on Finance and Human Resources to order. I declare there is a quorum of committee members present. Note that the media has been given proper notice pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act. Our first agenda item is second reading approval to revise policy BA Board Operations. Dr. Karen Whitley, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Superintendent Ingram, and board members. Policy BA, Board Operations, is being presented for second reading approval for revision. The revisions include the election of the officers will be every 2 years following the election of board members in a regular election cycle. Officers will hold the elected office for only one election cycle. The three standing committees will be Academics and Innovation, Finance and Capital Planning, and Human Resources. Seating of board members will occur in numerical order from left to right, with the exception of the board chairman, who will be seated in the middle with the superintendent to the right. Are there any questions?
Yes.
What is the pleasure of the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve second reading to revise policy BA Board Operations.
Second. Do we have any discussion?
I have a couple of thoughts. One of the things that is missing is the reorganization. Previously, when it said that you would elect the chairman, the next sentence said and reorganize committees, but there's no method to reorganize committees or to rename committees. That was dropped out. I am not in favor of a 2-year term. I think that is a long time, and it is a lot of stress. And over the time I've been on the board, I have served with 3 members that were elected in special elections, who were able to vote on chairman at the next annual May vote. Mr. Barrow was special election, Mr. Julius Barnes was special election, and Ms. Bradley was also a special election. So I do think that the policy limits the thinking to only the general election, and it doesn't take into account special election. Does this mean if there is a special election that would open up the opportunity for there to be another board officer election? I don't know if that's very stable. And I also think it precludes special election members from having a voice. I could go either way on the organization of committees. The committees were originally organized the way they are so that allocations from human resources would match up with finance. Because in the past, creating positions without budgeting money creates a deficit, and those two pieces were put together for that purpose to accomplish, because that is one of the most common things that we do is add positions or take positions away or change positions. So finance and HR goes together in that way. That's why it was put together in that way. And the last thing is the seating. The only thing I would suggest from the seating perspective is to put the vice chair beside the chairman. It is really hard to do this and to keep on track, and it's hard to not be embarrassed if you miss something. And many times Mac has reached over and pointed at my agenda, so I would realize I missed an item. Where everybody else sits, doesn't really matter to me, but from my experience, I would want the vice chair on the other side of the chairman so they can help you stay on the agenda and point to what you missed so that you can stay on track, or lean over and say, hey, you missed this, instead of having to go on the mic and tell you missed it, because it's hard to do this and sometimes you get embarrassed and then you find out thousands of people are watching you screw up, so that makes it even harder. So that's, last meeting we had some other real tenuous topics, so this past first reading I would say I think it passed unanimously on both readings possibly, because there was some other real serious discussion. We were here till 11 o'clock at night, so I didn't want to drone on about procedural things, but I did want to. I didn't get that. Could you try? Yeah. Good Lord, neither did my phone. And my watch is talking too.
Having been elected on this board singularly,
yeah, I'll say you as well. Yeah.
I would not have wanted to sit down in that chair, learn what it was I was supposed to do in front of me, and have to vote on a series of elected seats. You know, the chairman, the vice chairman, and the secretary. I think that having an opportunity to experience the board, go to the orientation in February, and then following that is a good amount of time to get a feel for who you want as the chairman, who you want as officers, and with some comfort level, and not just go, yeah, okay, sure, whatever you guys are saying. And especially, I think we've demonstrated that sometimes the board can change completely. Like there can be, we had, five new elected people today, or this time, right? So I think that we should be able to give them a chance to settle in before they're asked to elect officers.
Well, I differ totally with that, is because I've been on the board longer than anyone else has, and there has been policy that's been in place so that board members would have a rotation opportunity to serve in certain capacity, chairman, vice chair, secretary, and et cetera. And I think even if somebody's in a special election, that's why it's a special election. You come on the board, and there's current things in place when you arrive. And I think that we all are very intelligent enough to adjust and to understand and to interpret our responsibility as a board member. And as you go through your training, and if you go through your training, you take it very seriously, you'd find that the chairperson is only one board member. The chairperson don't have any more authority than anyone else. The chairperson works with the full board. The board relies on the chairperson to do certain things. So the chairperson cannot make any decision without the full board consent. So really, it's if you serve in any kind of board capacity, or if you're running for this board, then you should have I think, take some time to research the responsibility of what a school board position is all about. Before I decided to run for the board, I came in and I spent about 2 hours with Dr. Chester Floyd. And I wanted to know the responsibility of the board. And Dr. Floyd said, Frank, you know, if I was to tell you that what I would expect from a board member is to agree with me on everything that I want to do. He said, that's the way the world was like. But I know that we're going to differ, but we're going to differ professionally. But I would hope that you would come on the board and you would not have any special agenda. But you would come on this board and your focus would be on educating children, putting teachers and principals and et cetera first. And I think if we have that in mind, it really doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's not about the political thing. It's all about allowing others to lead as well. I don't want to chair the board anymore because it's changed as a great deal of responsibility. But I will support others if they want to do this. And I think we're big enough to accept that. Life is going to be okay. And after 2 years, you have the opportunity to rotate back on the board and serve as board chair if you're still a part of the board. That's right. It's very simple to me. I don't think it's complicated at all. That's just my opinion.
I think it is unfair to think that the 3 newly elected board members know nothing about this board. There is at least one person in the room, and I will not put them on the spot, that can attest to the fact that I have been watching this board for over 8 years, and I have wanted to run for the board for over 6. So I know what's going on the board. I know who I would like to see next in the chair seat. It's not anything against anyone. Sally, I think you've had the seat for 4 years now. So to say that there shouldn't be that 2 years is too long, I think that's not really fair. I think 2 years is a good number.
Well, 2 years, I think 2 years is too long without, I serve at the pleasure of the board, and I have said this, and if you've been close to me, you've heard this. I feel like the Lord called me to be on this board, and when He releases this mantle from me, I will thank the Lord and I will move on. I serve only at the pleasure of the board, and every year before I've run for chairman, I've called multiple people on this board and said, will you be chairman? Do you want to be chairman? Do you want me to be in this position still? It's not a position that I've assumed to be mine, and I am happy for someone else to sit in this seat. It's a very tough seat some days, but my saying 2 years was too long. I'm okay with limiting as well. I'm okay with term limits. I haven't always loved term limits because I felt like it turned people over. I just was saying I wish that we were going to vote every year. So there's that opportunity for you to say, what's changed in my life in this year? Do I want to continue in this position or not? But I feel like Mac and Michael both have been on the board with me and have had that phone call where I've called them and said, do you want me in this position? Does someone else want this position?
Sally, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Madam Chair.
No, we're friendly.
Madam Chair, the first night that when it was time for new board members, new officers, the first time we walked in executive session, we came out here and you were voted board chair in November of the new election. And that was fine because the majority of the board currently that was sitting here wanted you to chair the board. I voted in favor of that. You chaired the board for 4 years. That's fine. You did a fantastic job. And I appreciate your dedication and hard work. But I just under the impression that it's time now to move on and let others have an opportunity to do the same thing.
I'm not opposed to it.
And I'm saying as far as the year, we have a 2 years limit. You took it to where it wasn't 2 years anymore. It could have gone on and gone on for the next 10 years if the majority of the board members agreed to allow you to do so. I'm saying now, this policy, we should be making this policy, and it should have been the second and final reading, so that we can vote the new chairperson, vice chair, secretary, and move on into the year of 2021. That's my opinion. And it's nothing personal, but I think when we have that kind of changeover, it allows others to work with someone else as well. And that's where I'm at. It's nothing personal, it's just the way the board works.
I don't take it personal at all.
No, I was just saying it. I was just not saying that you were, but I was saying it for anyone else. Just letting know, this is just my perspective.
Yeah, I don't find that the term limits are all that relevant, but I do believe that having that first vote the day that we walk in as new board members, I think it should be put off until the orientation of the board members, and they get to go through the class that they'll go through in February. I just think it educates you about the way that the board runs.
I was just going to say, again, this is a policy that is not being recommended by the administration. I like to point that out to the public when that happens, but I mean, let's call a spade a spade. We've got a policy on how to elect board officers. That happens yearly in May. We're wanting to change it to where after an election...
It did not happen in May, Matt. Come on. It happened in November when Sally first got elected to the board. It happened in November.
Well, I
the year when
wasn't.
she first got elected. Don't say May.
No,
That's what the current policy says
no,
in every
sir,
May.
that's not correct. I was elected in 2014. In the 2016 election, the current chair, Mr. Jim Hayes, was not reelected, and it left an open chairmanship. So that was the original.
Still, we voted. I mean, that could happen. That can happen every 2 years. That can happen if whoever becomes chair, they can lose the seat, and now we have to vote for another chairperson. It doesn't make a difference, but we did it currently then. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Let's call it a spade a spade. There's a majority of members on the board that are creating this policy so that they can elect a new chairperson.
Exactly.
And elections have consequences.
Right.
I get it. I'm fine with it. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's no point to this policy other than to change the committees, which I think, honestly, I kind of agree with the committee changes, but the real reason for this is, let's be open and transparent, is to elect a new board chair.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that's what we're supposed to do. I really don't think it's a problem. It's just what it is. I mean, it is to elect a new board chair, vice chair, and secretary. Absolutely. That's what it's for. And we all can work together, and we can have new leadership and still be effective.
But we're talking about rewriting a policy that goes into the future, not just here and now.
Well,
So I think we need to
this
look at that
policy's
as well.
been in place, ma'am, before you came on the board. I've worked with several board chairs, and I treat them with respect and move on. We're going to be okay. It's not like the world is going to come to an end. Why we're so disagreeable with this particular time? I mean, you know, I've been on the board where I've been the chair, and the vice chair, and have worked with other board chairs. And when we came up this, when we voted for salary, I didn't hear any of that. And all of a sudden now, it seemed to be a problem. I need to know why. These folks are newly elected, but they may not even vote for whoever someone nominates. We don't know where their positions are. I may not vote for someone, but I think that the policy should be there and not continue where no one new could serve as board chair. That's ridiculous.
Anyone who's nominated can, and seconded every May, can run for any position. There hasn't been a limit in the policy that didn't allow people to be nominated or to be voted on. But I agree, we'll elect a new chair and we'll move on and work will get done. That's how boards work. I don't disagree with that.
May I say there's no guarantees in life, and you know, the best laid plans of mice and men sometimes go awry. So you just never know. Life is like a box of chocolates. You just don't know what you're always going to get. So when we do have a board election, you know, there can be more than one slate of officers up for election, and sometimes people's opinions change. So let's roll the dice and see what happens.
Any more discussion?
The reason we're changing the policy is to cut Sally Wofford's chairmanship short. Period. Pure and simple.
Matt,
That's
Matt,
fine. That's fine.
Matt, you just said something that is so not true. Sally's been chairing the board for the last 4 years. How is that cutting her board short? Sally changed the policy. You voted to change the policy that you can serve more than just 2 years. So how is someone cutting somebody's term? That's not fair to say that.
No,
If you're going to be fair, wait a minute. The policy used to be when someone would serve for 2 years. You changed that policy so you can continue to serve. So who changed something? So don't wait, tell me who changed something now. Come on, I want to be fair about it.
The policy. My
No, but I'm saying
understanding.
the policy was when you would serve for 2 years and rotate off after you've served for 2 years. And I'm saying to you, but you get voted each year. You can serve for 2 years, but you get voted in each year. So what I'm saying to you is that Sally has served for 4 years. So how is in the world someone has cut Sally's term? What you just said is not even fair. Don't do that.
No, what I'm saying is the policy as written is that each year in
Policy
May.
was changed.
I don't know how, the policy's been in place for at least 3 or 4 years.
But you only could serve 2 years consecutively. After that 2 years that you've served, your term is done, and then you come off, and then you can serve again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, but the policy as it's written now is each year in May, the board elects new officers.
Well, I'm saying if we change it so that somebody can stay on for 4 or 5 years, and so now we're changing the policy if we want somebody to run currently tonight, what's the difference? I'm giving you my opinion.
Yeah,
But I'm saying you change it so you can stay on for 5 years, 10 years, 6 years. And so now if we change it tonight, that a person can run tonight to become board chair, how is it any different than how the way the policy was changed before?
Because under our current policy, Sally would continue to serve through May, and then the vote would be taken by this board in May to elect new officers.
I'm
But
saying to you,
that's my point when I say
know,
we're
but
cutting
you
short.
changed the policy so that Sally can serve more than 2 years consecutively, right? That's a question.
I don't know what the former policy
You
said.
know
I
what
know
it
what the
was.
current
Come on,
policy said.
I don't want to look at it.
But you're saying there was a cap, there was a term limit. Look, if you're in this
Absolutely.
position, you got to
Absolutely,
rotate off.
absolutely.
Two consecutive one-year
Two
terms.
consecutive one.
Two consecutive one-year terms elected in May. That is almost verbatim was the old policy, which was revised, well, at least, 2 or 3 years ago. So that settles it.
But I think it was union.
It was changed because there used to be term limits. There are not term limits under the current policy. We're revising that back to the 2-year term limit, but only a 2-year term instead of 2 consecutive 1-year terms.
Yeah, and Frank, I'm not trying to be unfair with my
No, I
comment.
understand.
My point is
Yeah.
Sally, under the current policy, Sally serves until next May and then a vote's had. Under the proposed policy, we're going to elect new board members at the next meeting. So I don't think my comment's unfair. We are cutting her term short under the current policy.
Well, I mean, but you cut her term short in the current policy, but you increased the term when it wasn't supposed to be like that. You voted to change the policy then. What I'm trying to say is that you did that then, and it was okay. So now, if we revert it back, then it's okay too. I'm just saying, when you did it the other way, it was quite fine. I didn't hear anybody cry about it then. That's all I'm saying.
No, I think it was unanimous the last time. There was no issue with it. I'm not crying about it. I'm just saying,
Maybe unanimous,
I'm saying this is what it is.
Yeah,
Elections have consequences. I get it.
But I'm only saying,
Call for the question, Mr. Chairman.
We will now call the question. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who are opposed respond by saying nay.
Nay.
The motion is approved by a vote of 2 to 1. Our second agenda item is second reading approval to revise policy GBEC, drug and alcohol free workplace in schools. Dr. Whitley, you are recognized again.
Thank you. Policy GBEC, drug and alcohol-free workplace in schools, is being presented for second reading approval revision. The revisions include safety-sensitive positions are school bus drivers and other positions directly involved in the transportation of students, positions requiring a commercial driver's license or the operation of heavy equipment or machinery, positions involving the maintenance of major mechanical or electrical equipment, and positions involving the delivery of medical care to students. Safety-sensitive positions do not include principals, assistant principals, teachers, and teachers' aides unless such employees are directly involved in the transportation of students. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I will never be in favor for saying that the people who are taking care of children in the school district are not in a safety-sensitive position. We just spent 20 minutes talking about providing a safe environment for people to be able to teach children. I disagree. I don't think there's any reason to go into more detail than that, but people who are taking care of my children certainly are safety sensitive, because if they are not alert and aware of my child and my child gets hurt or my child gets lost or something happens to my child, I would certainly hold the school district and that person accountable.
Mr. Barrow, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to approve second reading to revise policy GBEC, drug and alcohol-free workplace in schools.
Second, do we have any discussion?
I go on record as saying that I do not think that we should eliminate this policy. Every place I've ever worked has had a policy that had random drug tests for all employees. So I don't really understand the thinking behind saying that we shouldn't have it. Period.
Dr. Ingram or Dr. Whitley, was this policy proposed by the administration or board members?
It was not proposed by the administration.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I do want to say something. We do have a policy in place, I believe, to do drug testing for teachers and other employees in the district, correct? Is there There's two policies, correct?
If there's a suspicion.
Okay, so it's not like we're completely eliminating drug testing or safety, correct?
The provision is in place if there is something awry with the employee's behavior and it's outwardly manifested.
This is a deletion of the randomized drug testing for teachers, correct?
Right. Right.
There is a policy that allows for the testing of any employee when their supervisor or other individual goes to their supervisor with what we term is, in the legal term, is reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion is the legality of the term which gives the district the authority to mandate, to require that individual to undergo a drug test. So that policy is there. There have been occasions, very few to my recollection over the 40 years that I've been in this business, that we've actually done that. There's also a policy, the policy also allows for, and let me make this clear, when a person applies for a job in the Berkeley County School District, the current policy also allows for and requires, if the HR folks deem it necessary, for that applicant to be drug tested. Now, I don't recall that ever happening, but the policy is in place. But I don't think we've ever, Dr. Whitley, you've been in this position a couple of years and you've been in the district a long time. So have we ever drug tested an applicant for any position other than the safety sensitive positions that are required under the new provisions?
No, sir, not since I've been in this
No,
position.
we have not. So if it's so important that we have something that we want to do, why haven't we done it? Number one. Secondly, this policy was written 2 years and 4 months ago. The policy was approved 2 years and 4 months ago, but it was never added an administrative rule defining how it could be and should be implemented, who should be tested, how many times a year, what percentage, what's the cost, how it's going to be evaluated, and what are going to be the levels of any type of action taken against a particular individual. So if it's so important to retain this, why haven't we done this already? Almost 2.5 years ago, this policy has been on the books with no administrative rule. And this is the third or fourth time I've made this point. But I feel like it's necessary to reiterate the fact that if it's that important for us to do this, who's going to write this administrative rule? You cannot ask another school district in South Carolina for their administrative rule, because there are none. Not one single school district in this state has a similar policy. Not one. We are the exception. So we're the guinea pig. If we start this, go ahead with the slippery slope. Pandora's box is wide open, because you're opening ourselves up to all sorts of litigation and concern with the public, not to mention the fact that teacher retention and teacher recruitment is essential. We're talking about teacher shortages. Let them get the word out that we're going to start randomly drug testing teachers for whatever purpose. You think they're going to come to Charleston or Berkeley or Dorchester? I get my idea they're not going to come to Berkeley, because that's not employee friendly. They're going to go somewhere else. And there's no reason for it, ladies and gentlemen. There's no reason for this random drug testing.
To quote you, Mr. Barrow, we can do something or we can do nothing.
and we have it in place that we can do something. It is a part of the current policy that allows us to do it.
We will now call the question. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who are opposed respond by saying nay.
Nay.
The motion is approved by a vote of 2-1. Our third agenda item is second reading approval to delete JCA-E Student Sexual Discrimination and Harassment Complaint Form. Dr. Whitley, you are recognized again.
We are asking for second reading approval to delete JCA-E Student Sexual Discrimination and Harassment Complaint Form, an updated complaint form that was based on and implements board policy JCA consistent with current regulations, was received as information during the December committee meeting.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve second reading to delete JCA-E Student Sexual Discrimination and Harassment Complaint Form.
Second. Do we have any discussion?
I'm just going to ask Dr. Whitley, can you please clarify, because I personally got a lot of emails about this. We're eliminating this to replace it with something else that has been updated. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, to be in compliance with the regulation that came out in August. This is pretty much just cleaning up. We already have something in place that is in compliance.
Thank you.
So this was an old one.
Thank you.
Dr. Whitley, like the prior two questions, as I understand it, this is actually a policy that has been proposed by the administration, not individual board members, correct?
This has been proposed by the administration.
Thank you.
We will now call the question. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed respond by saying nay. The motion is approved by a vote of 3-0. Our fourth agenda item is second reading approval to delete GBAA-E Harassment Complaint Form. Dr. Whitley, you are recognized again.
Thank you. We are asking for second reading approval to delete GBAA-E Harassment Complaint Form, an updated complaint form that was based on and implements board policy GBAA anti-harassment, consistent with current regulations, was received as information during the October 13th committee meeting. Are there any questions?
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve second reading to delete GBAA-E Harassment Complaint Form.
Second. Do we have any discussion?
Dr. Whitley, same question. This is a policy proposed by the administration, not like the first two that were proposed by individual board members, correct?
This policy was proposed by the administration, yes, sir.
Thank you.
We will now call the question. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed respond by saying nay. The motion is approved by a vote of 3-0. Our fifth agenda item is second reading approval to delete Administrative Rule JCA-AR Student Sexual Discrimination and Harassment. Dr. Whitley, you are recognized again.
We are asking for second reading approval to delete Administrative Rule JCA-AR Student Sexual Discrimination and Harassment that was issued in 7/7. We have requested a new administrative rule that was received as information during the December meeting. This is also to be in compliance with the regulation that came out in August.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve second reading to delete Administrative Rule JCA-AR Student Sexual Discrimination and Harassment.
Second. Do we have any discussion? We would now call the question. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed respond by saying nay. The motion is approved by a vote of 3-0. Thank you, Dr. Whitley.
Thank you.
Our sixth agenda item is the financial update through December 31st, 2020. Ashley Smith, you are now recognized.
Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Dr. Ingram, and board members. I'll be providing the financial update through 12/31/2020 this evening. In the general fund of our budgeted $314.7 million, we have received $115.1 million in revenue through the second quarter. I've had several questions regarding local revenue and if we anticipate additional revenue over projections. While I think there is potential to have additional revenue, through 12/31/2020, we have only received $2.1 million in additional local revenue for this same time period as last year, but we should see this increase January through March. We will have a better idea in the third quarter on how actuals compare to projections. Expenditures are right on target at $131.3 million through 12/31/2020. The report tonight also includes the actual cost of the retention payment provided to all full-time and part-time employees. The total cost was $6.1 million, including the employer portion of deductions. We are showing that we have more expenditures than revenue in the special revenue budget. This is mainly because of the claims for federal funds through the second quarter are not due until February, so that revenue will not be reported until third quarter. The CARES Act is also a part of the special revenue funds. Through 12/31, we have spent $2.8 million of the $6.7 million allocation, and we have a little over $165.7 thousand encumbered. The EIA budget is strictly state funded. Through 12/31, we have $9.5 million in revenue and $5.8 million in expenditures, and another $570,000 encumbered. The capital budget includes $22.4 million from carryover and $36.5 million from the September bond issuance. We have spent $8.4 million and have another $15.8 million encumbered for projects that are in progress. The referendum budget that was originally over $200 million, including the encumbrances, is down to a balance of $267,000 and should be spent by the end of this year. The child nutrition budget is slightly over budget as of 12/30. Revenues are down due to COVID, but we also have $500,000 from the CARES Act to aid child nutrition during this school year if revenues are not stronger in the second half of the year. Are there any questions?
That was for information purposes only. Our seventh agenda item is 2019-2020 procurement audit. Ms. Smith, you're recognized again.
Thank you. Our auditors, Elliott Davis, performed audit procedures for the 2019-2020 school year on compliance with the district's policies and procedures outlined in the district's procurement code. The audit covered the 6 areas listed on this slide. The general control procedures mainly consist of a review of audit reports from internal and external audit organizations and donations subject to the procurement code. The auditors did not note any issues or exceptions under the general control procedures. Under code compliance, they reviewed the district's minority and women business plan, the P-card manual, and a sample of individual transactions. The auditors determined that the district's matrix of procurement requirements was consistent with the procurement code and stated that the district's minority and women business plan was submitted timely and the goal was met. Out of a sample of 200 P-card transactions, there were no exceptions noted in regards to split transactions. The 2 minor findings on P-cards will be covered on the next slide. They reviewed all sole source and emergency procurements and no exceptions were noted. Under the compliance, supplies and services, IT, and consultations, the total dollar amount reported for all POs in the 2019-2020 school year was $41.1 million. There were only 2 exceptions noted in the random sample of 45 transactions. The district had no exceptions for surplus property. A random sample of construction, architect, engineer, and other related professional services was performed, and no exceptions were noted in regards to architect, engineer, and related professional services. The district was compliant in all requirements with the exception of a few minor findings. We had 50 P-cards that were inactive for over 6 months. We have reviewed these purchasing cards, and many of these are inactive due to them being used for travel or special use. If the cards are not planned to be used in the future, we will cancel them. There were 54 P cards with a transaction limit over the $2,500 district threshold. Unfortunately, this will be a recurring problem. The 54 cards are all for special use, for contract purposes, and temporary labor. Out of 45 transactions tested, 4 of the transactions were not paid timely. Procurement and accounts payable will continue to work together to ensure timely payments. 2 of the procurement transactions selected had a purchase order date subsequent to the invoice date. We will continue to remind the end user the importance of timely purchase orders. 3 of the 5 procurements selected from construction were also not paid timely. Most construction payments do require additional approvals, but we will work on pushing these approvals through more promptly in the future. The final item I want to mention is not listed here because it is not a finding. We did have 173 ratifications during the 1920 school year. Marcy and her team are very diligent about having the end user complete a ratification if procedures are not followed. 173 ratifications is not a lot when you consider we have made 40,430 P card purchases and had 2,547 purchase orders during the course of the year. I've shared this presentation along with the auditor's final report and the district's corrective action plan on board docs for your review. And I would also like to publicly commend Marcy and her team for their hard work and dedication and the good result of the 2019-2020 procurement audit. Thank you, Marcy.
And I would just like to make a brief statement. When I came on the board, and many of us came on the board here 4+ years ago, our P card issues, some of the issues that we had almost seemed insurmountable as far as getting fixed. And I just want to commend you, Ashley, commend you, Marcy, and just all the administration. Dr. Ingram, it's been amazing to watch the accounting and the procurement and the financials and just to see the work that y'all have done. It's almost been like a miracle compared, and a lot of folks don't understand that where I'm coming from, but if you go back 4+ years and you look at some of the meetings, videos and minutes, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. So just getting this kind of report just really gets me excited, and I just thank all of y'all.
Ms. Marcy and her team have done an excellent job.
Okay, our 8th agenda item is BVB 581-20-21, Radio Communication Equipment and Services. Ms. Smith, you are recognized again.
And I'm going to turn this one over to Marcy.
Ms. Marcy.
Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, members of the board, Dr. Ingram. Tonight we present to you Best Value Bid 581-2021 for radio communication equipment and services. This solicitation was conducted to secure a contract to purchase 2-way radios and annual maintenance checks for all district 2-way radios, excluding transportation, because those are on a different contract, as well as any parts, labor required to repair district 2-way radios. We received 2 bids from the local authorized Motorola dealers because we needed a local vendor to service this contract. And after tabulation and evaluation, the highest ranked responsive and responsible bidder was Radio Communications of Charleston with an annual cost of $58,040 with an estimated 5-year contract value of $290,200. We'll have an initial term of 1 year with the option to renew for 4 additional years.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the award of BVB 581-2021 for radio communications equipment and services to Radio Communication of Charleston for an initial contract term of 1 year for an estimated annual contract value of $58,040 with the option to renew for 4 additional 1-year terms for an estimated total contract value of $290,200.
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Just a couple questions, Marcy. These are for school radios.
Yes, they're the handheld portable
Right.
radios in their bases.
That's really good that the district's going to pay for them. Schools used to have to pay for them out of their own funding, so I don't know how long this has been this way, but it sure takes the burden of responsibility off the school principals, so this is very good.
And it'll be a mixture. Well, they're assigned some radios, and then the annual maintenance the district covers. And then
Okay.
sometimes the schools will use
Sometimes
their
they have
funds.
to pony up a little.
I'll use district funds. So
How
it's
many
not-
radios are we buying now? You got any idea?
I believe.
That's all right, don't worry
I had
about
that count. I believe it was 195.
Okay.
I believe
Thank
was
you.
the final count.
We will now call the question. All those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed respond by saying nay. The motion is approved by a vote of 3-0. Thank you, Morrison. Thank you, Ashley. Do we have any discussion?
Our motion to adjourn. So moved. I guess I need a second. So I moved to adjourn.
Second.
Well, Mr. Barrow, give me a second. I forgot to announce, I'm not throwing anybody else under the bus, I didn't know. January 26th, the teacher forum will be hosting a reception for the board prior to the board meeting. We will send out more details, but I would expect it to be sometime in the 4:30 time frame, or normally an hour before the board. If you can make arrangements to be here early, it's an opportunity for teacher forum to get to engage with board members in a reception style. So that's before the next board meeting. So I'm sorry I didn't share that before.
Okay. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn and return to regular session.
No regular session, we're going home. So I made the motion to adjourn. Dave seconded.
All those in favor respond by saying
Aye.
It is approved.